Hello everybody and welcome to Project Trade. This is the Trading Highlights Show, all the moments that matter from our testing of trading strategies. Today we're on a technical trading strategy and we are reversing our relatively simple strategy. Correctamundo. We had some pretty tragic results trading that strategy, and so now we're going to flip the whole thing on its head and see where that gets us. Profitability, that's where it's going to get us. Clearly both genius and ingenious. Actions speak louder than words, so let me take the action of talking everybody through the strategy. Firstly, if you do want to check out the relatively simple strategy and how that went, it will be linked in the video description. But we're going to use two indicators to get us to where we need to be. The 80 period simple moving average will be one of them. If you're unfamiliar with the simple moving average, then welcome to the world of trading. It adds together the individual prices from each of the periods that it's looking back at. For us, that's 80, and then divides that total by the number of periods. For us, that's 80. It will plot that data point on your price chart and connect it via line with the previous data point on the chart. Pretty simple methodology if you ask me. I just get why they call it that. It's smart. And as the strategy name suggests, in the form of a double entendre, our second indicator will be the relative strength index, the single line range bound oscillator which has a maximum reading of 100 and a minimum reading of 0. It's trying to measure out price momentum, with 100 being the most upward momentum and 0 being the most downward momentum. We're using the default period input from Wells Wilder, which is 14 periods. He liked to set the levels of the oscillator at 70 and 30, but we've set the levels in our example as what we're going to be using when we trade, which are the 60 and 40 levels. Those are just the basics for our entry indicators. We have made videos for each of them linked in the description if you want any more. But what is going to be the entry criteria that actually gets us into the trades? Since we're in reverse gear, when price is above the 80 period moving average, we're only going to take sell signals. Then when price is below the moving average, it'll be just the buy signals for us. For our relative strength index, it's more of the traditional signals for the indicator that we'll be using, but the levels, as you saw in our example, are going to be tighter to the center line. When the RSI value crosses and closes above the 60 value, then we'll take a sell trade, or when it crosses and closes below a reading of 40, it will be a buy trade entry. This is close to what Wilder intended to use the indicator for. We're essentially gunning for those reversals. Here's an example of a trade entry that we'd take. In this one, we can see price moves above the moving average, putting us up for sell trades, and when the RSI shifts above 60, we would enter a sell trade. Now you might look at the chart and think out loud that this chart is clearly showing an upward trend, and you're right, but this was the example that we cherry picked out for the non-reversed relatively simple strategy, and we saw what actually happened in that strategy with the vast majority of trades we took. Forward testing, we didn't really see any moves at all that looked like this. But just on the outside chance that we do come up against a move, we'll need to manage our money somehow. So just like in the relatively simple strategy, we'll take some help from the accelerator oscillator. It's a zero line crossover histogram, and it's calculated by taking the awesome oscillator indicator reading and subtracting from it a 5 period simple moving average of the awesome oscillator. Now the awesome oscillator is calculated by taking a 5 period simple moving average and subtracting from that a 34 period simple moving average. Sounds complicated. There is no more time to explain it here. The video is in the description if that's what you're after. But for our intentions and purposes, we will exit our trade if the accelerator oscillator crosses 0 against us. For example, there's a very high chance that when we enter a sell trade, the accelerator oscillator will have a reading above 0, as price will be above the moving average and the RSI above 60. So we will exit the trade when the accelerator oscillator closes beneath 0. If we're in a buy trade, then we'll exit when the accelerator oscillator closes above 0. We won't use the simple moving average or relative strength index for any exit signals though, do bear that in mind. They are strictly entry indicators for us. We'll rock a take profit level as well. No stop loss though, remember it's reverse of the relatively simple strategy which used a stop loss level but no take profit level. So the reverse will naturally use a take profit but not a stop loss. When we're in a sell trade, the take profit level will be at the lowest low in price from the last 14 periods. And for a buy trade, we'll switch that around and say that the take profit level will be at the highest high in price of the last 14 periods. And we'll also measure our trade volume by saying that we have a 2% capital reward to wherever that take profit level is. Upside cap at 2%, downside no cap. Crazy, but true. That'll keep our money managed, and we'll stick with the 15-minute time frame that we used in the relatively simple strategy so that we can keep that consistent. And we'll use the same 3 currency pairs as well. Those are the New Zealand dollar US dollar pair, the Great British pound pound Canadian dollar pair and the euro Australian dollar pair. There won't be anything to reverse when it comes to our journaling though. We will maintain a record of our trades to make sure that we have some glory to bask in when all is said and done. Let's get into the platform and make some trades. Here we are on the charts. It's about 20 to 11 in the morning and we are broadcasting live from the ivory tower. Our 3 trading charts pulled up. On the left we've got the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. In the middle the pound Canadian dollar. And over on the right the euro Australian. All of them with their indicators on. So we've got the 80 period moving average. Method simple, applied to the closer price in a style of dark orchid. And the relative strength index at the bottom. Let's take a look at that one. The level set at 60 and 40. And it is 14 periods once again applied to the close. This time in a style of red. What is going on those charts? Great British pound seeing some strength come back into it. Not as much as the euro Australian dollar has the last couple though. And it's getting very close to a signal. So price above the moving average, that means we are looking for sell trades only. And if that RSI finishes above 60 in a couple minutes, we'll be taking a sell trade. We will delve into the economic calendar, but first let's just wait 2 minutes, see if we get this signal, because it's very possible if we see the push. Just about 30 seconds to go before the close of the candle. Not getting the signal at the moment, but let's just measure out where we're going to be from the lowest low of the last 14 periods. Might still come. That'll be down here. So we are looking at around about 40 pips. Here comes the close. Doesn't happen. Don't get the signal. Might get it this period, but that's another 15 minutes. So for now, let's check out our economic calendar. See if there's any big events for the day. And it is a quiet day. 1:50. We did have the Bank of Japan's summary of opinions, published 10 days after they announced monetary policy or interest rate decisions. Explain yourselves. And that was it for the Asia session. So far this morning in Europe, Swiss unemployment rate, and they hit the forecast, so nothing too interesting there. Better than the previous, so the actual and the forecast are 2.7% against a 2.8% previous. Strong for them again. It's a good unemployment rate. We can see the non-seasonally adjusted one doesn't quite make the forecast, but it's a 2.5 against a 2.4 forecast with a 2.6 previous. So still a bit of an improvement for them, even if they miss the forecast ever so slightly. And then no events until 1:30, where we do get the weekly Brazilian Central Bank Focus Market Report, which will have absolutely no impact on us whatsoever. And then no numbers at all throughout the day. Plenty of speeches from the ECB and the Fed. So we got ECB Executive Board Member Lane making speeches at 10 past 3 and 4 o'clock. Fed Vice Chairman Clarida is also 4 o'clock. Fed Chair Jerome Powell, 5:30. That could have an impact. He is the one to watch. And you've also got from the Federal Open Market Committee Member Williams making a speech at 5 to 6. Fed Governor Bowman at 7 o'clock. And then 8 o'clock, Bundesbank Executive Board Member Boltz. Loads of speeches. Obviously, Jay Powell the most likely to have an impact. But you never know if one of them slips up and says something they shouldn't. Their speech editor slept in for the weekend. Just assumes that the speech is fine when actually they're dropping bombs. Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, we're trading the US dollar and the euro, so if there is any instant impact, we should see that feed through. And that's it. 11:45 p.m. we do have from New Zealand electronic card retail sales month-on-month, year-on-year. But at that time, it's effectively tomorrow. Should be interesting though, the month-on-month forecast at negative 8.5 and the year-on-year forecast at positive 8.7. See if that works out. Let's get back on the charts. And again, it's the euro Australian dollar. It's pushing green again, so we can see the RSI above 60. Just under 10 minutes and we'll check in on the close. 25 seconds to go until the close of the candle. Doesn't look like we're going to get the euro Aussie dollar signal. We see the RSI now hovering above and below 57. As the candle goes red. Our closest eye was on the pound Canadian. RSI up at 59. It could push there, still could. Doesn't quite get there. Wow, that was close. Now it's above 60. But if we look at this, 59.88 was the final reading. Last one to watch. If we see a green candle here, in fact, all of these charts, if we see the New Zealand dollar, US dollar as well, RSI around 58 there. They're all threatening a sell trade from these green candles pushing into overbought. Some good trade potential here. 30 seconds before the close of this candle. Does look like we could be getting 2 signals. Let's have a look at the risk. New Zealand dollar, US dollar on the left. Going to measure that out for 21 pips to the take profit. And the pound Canadian, again at the lowest low of the last 14 periods. And we're looking at 47 pips for that one. So here we are for the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. We are going to round up, but you can see our risk calculated on the screen. and we'll sell the market. And we want to get in on the pound CAD quickly too, as we do see that dropping. And so once again, you can see our risk calculated on screen, this time 0.39. Now we're in a couple trades. We'll need our exit indicator, the accelerator oscillator. For the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, in a bit of an annoying situation where the accelerator oscillator is still below zero at the moment. This momentum hasn't kicked in for it, hasn't taken it across the zero line. Could be closing this one out if it does finish beneath zero. The Great British Pound Canadian dollar, this is more of what we expect to see with the accelerator oscillator. You can see there over the last 3 green periods that absolutely has kicked in, and it pushed the accelerator oscillator over a long time ago. So once this one closes beneath zero, that's when we'll be exiting the trade. Unless of course either of these are able to take our profit. Can set out New Zealand dollar, US dollar at 210 points. There it is, right towards the lowest low. And same for the pound caddy. Let's go for that take profit, 470. Everything done to the opposite of the relatively simple strategy. We didn't have take profits on those trades, so when we reverse it, we don't have stop losses on these. We are fully reliant on the accelerator oscillator or the take profit level to get us there. Let's hope none of these trades run really far against us. But we saw how the relatively simple strategy performed, and it wasn't good. Hence why we can hang our hopes on the potential of reversing it for some profits. We are going to be closing off the New Zealand dollar, US dollar trade in just a few seconds. Looks like it's going to be for a small loss, but it could take one last leap into profit maybe. Let's close it off now as the candle rolls over. It's in a weird situation where the accelerator oscillator hasn't quite caught up. You can see now where it does flip over. But if you had a rule that said, hey, the accelerator oscillator is also an entry filter on my trade, and I need it to be above zero for the sell signal, that would make sense. But we didn't put it as an entry indicator. We were in profit with it for about a minute or so, but it dropped out of that. Pretty close to our entry price, not too worried about that loss, as long as they don't start piling up like that. Meanwhile, our pound CAD is looking quite nice. Accelerator oscillator has still been rising, but hopefully this is a reversal and not a retracement of another move like this. At the moment, just over $50 up on that one. 12:15, and on the pound Canadian dollar, we do see the accelerator oscillator flip now. It is a very mild flip at the moment, so if a strong green candle comes, it could stop us from closing. But if it finished exactly where it is right now, we'd make $60 profit from it. Let's just hope we don't get that one big green then. And over on the right, the Euro Australian dollar. Would have been really nice to see the RSI get over 60. That's at 59.4 up there. If we'd had a bit of a green candle, it could have been on this sell-off. Still though, we'll wait for the proper signal to come. For now, we're looking at 12:30. Hopefully we can get this pound Canadian dollar trade closed off for some decent profit. 5 seconds until the close. It does seem like we are going to be able to shut this trade down. As it rolls over, we get the close of the accelerator oscillator. There you see it appear. So we shut that one down. And turned out pretty good at $40.72. Pretty happy with a win like that though. Does put us about $30 up for the day. Always nice to see. And now for future signals. Well, the New Zealand dollar, US dollar is closest. RSI lurking around that 60 level. If it gets up, could see a sell signal right in this same sort of area. Had we allowed this previous trade to run through, looks like so it would have ended up closing on the return of this candle right here. So might have been better, but there's still a spread, so I don't really think there would have been any money to be made. We'll watch and see if that overbought signal comes there though. As of right now, it will be a sell trade. With the RSI hovering around 63, it does look as though we are going to get the signal, so let's measure out our risk on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. 26 pips, more than last time. So you can see what that means for our risk as we do get the signal from the close. So it's going to be 0.57 for a sell trade, New Zealand dollar, US dollar. And then we can marry up that take profit level at 260 points right towards the bottom there. Not sure how this one's going to go. We have seen a higher low come in this, so it wouldn't be too surprising if a retracement is on the move. And it is one again where the accelerator oscillator giving us some problems, still below zero itself at the moment. So it could just be a bit of a coin flip on the direction that this goes this period. Does look like we are going to be closing this trade off. 5 seconds time, the accelerator oscillator closing below zero, staying closed below zero at least, and it's going to be a win for us as we shut that off for $14.82. The previous loss on that chart was $9.10. So we do make that money back plus another $5.72 as we see price come green on the chart. And if this candle finishes green like that, we can see the RSI is at 60.77 right now. I mean, just before it closed at 59.14. So technically that would be a re-entry signal with the RSI in above 60. So we will have to watch for signal number 3 on that chart. Could come pretty quickly, but for now at least we can be pleased that we got a win out of that trade. Let's keep it going in that direction. Well, we are going to get the sell signal again on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, RSI 61.33. Not going as high as we would have liked it to. We're going to call that 26 pips again. So it's same volume. Once more we can sell it off. And so look at how similar this entry position is. Let's have a look at the prices. 71516 for the last trade, 71513 for this one. And of course we can once again set that take profit level. Let's pull up our accelerator oscillator. This time the accelerator oscillator is above 0. That could be good, it could be bad. It means we get to give it a full chance. It was a bit of a weak crossover, so we could see it return with one strong red candle. But hopefully we do get the chance to get 2 or 3. Otherwise this could be the start of the accelerator oscillator move. We don't want to see that push on with too much green, because that means that price will be getting us down. It's been an interesting one. Good money to be made, or bad money to be lost? Let's find out. About 40 minutes into our trade, not looking good at the moment. We've gone to around about $32 down now. It's getting away from us. It looks like it does want to actually go on a run instead of reversing. You can see it push there, $35 down. Meanwhile, the middle chart, the Great British Pound Canadian, what a push on this candle, and it has knocked the RSI above 60, almost at 62. So we're going to be measuring out our risk. This is the 14th candle here, so we do get quite a low for it. Otherwise it would have been up here. Let's have a look what that gives us. There's around about 49 pips that we're going to go for. So we are going to get a sell trade. This is pushing hard, so it could easily push for another period. Not what we want to see. But there's always the chance that it is overbought. So let's sell off the market and we'll set our take profit. 490 points. It's gone to our favor at the second. There we go. The take profit set. This is going to be a bit of a wild one. Honestly, it could go either way. Let's have a look at the accelerator oscillator. And that is above 0, so we're going to have to wait for the reverse. Pretty volatile out there. Just gone 2:30 and we are getting crushed out there at the moment on both of our trades. We saw green candles come on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar and the pound Canadian. Particularly the pound Canadian, it was looking like it could have been profitable for us. Still could, but that was a really big push for the buyers. On the New Zealand dollar, US on the left, the accelerator oscillator does continue towards 0, but barely a difference between the last 2 histogram bars. Again, if that last candle, instead of being a green, had been a red, would have pushed the accelerator across 0 and we'd be looking at a bit of profit. At the moment, we need a big move on both these charts to get us going again. And our trades continue to get punished here. Green candles come on both these charts, pushing to new highs of the day, and they look like they're going to keep on going. We are currently $170 down from these 2 trades. Just after 3:15, and we continue to get obliterated by these trades. Almost $250 down between the pair. Particularly the pound Canadian dollar just looks like it wants to keep on running. Both these charts though, no sign whatsoever of the accelerator oscillator turning back and getting beneath the 0 line. 30 seconds until 4 o'clock, and right at the end of this period, the Euro Australian dollar over on the right is sneaking in with a signal. It's getting almost beneath 39. Can it hold that? A pullback will take it above 40 again. We have calculated our risk as it does look like it's going to hold. So we'll be getting in with 0.67 lots. This one's going to be a buy signal. It does hold out. And there we go. We buy in. Spread's not the best. 30 pips, 300 points for the take profit. You can see that's up towards, it's meant to be the tip around here. And price has been coming down. This is a support level by the look of it. And with 30 seconds until we get to 4:30, the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, the accelerator oscillator has gone below 0, only by a touch, but that's enough that we will be able to close out the trade at 15 seconds. It is going to be quite a hefty loss for us unless we see a miracle in the next 5 seconds. Here it comes, and we do close it down. But I want to focus in on it just for a minute, because this is a near perfect example of how the relatively simple strategy is meant to work. When we were trading the relatively simple strategy, we didn't get any trades in the 3 days at all that looked like this, but this is how they were meant to look. So if you haven't seen the video on the relatively simple strategy, don't worry, don't bother, because this is a much better example than anything you're going to see over there. So this would be a buy trade here, not a sell trade. You'd buy in when the RSI closed above 60, and then you catch all of that first move. You get all the way up there, and then hopefully price just ranges around until eventually the accelerator oscillator just drifts across that zero line, giving you the signal to close it down. And even better, it peaks off with a green candle. A lot of the time we were finding when we traded the relatively simple strategy, our trades, they were doing this, and then right before the end, they wouldn't retrace, they'd reverse, and we'd see a couple big drops. Obviously in this strategy, we could have done with that, but really happy to be able to show this trade and say, look, this is how the relatively simple strategy is meant to work. Because I did feel a little bit foolish when we were trading that strategy that we didn't get any of these trades. And you kind of have to turn around and say, well, it looked like it worked in back testing, but nobody believes you when you're live forward testing. So here it is. The proof is in the pudding. We did lose $122.55. If it had been the relatively simple strategy, obviously we wouldn't have made as much as we lost because the spreads are still involved. But it would probably be around about $100. By far the biggest win we would have got on that strategy. But let's have a look at those other charts. The pound Canadian dollar looks like it might be another good example as well, because we see that accelerator oscillator drifting towards the zero line, but no strong reversal coming just yet. $180 down on that trade. And finally, our Euro Australian dollar, we got in with the buy trade at 4 o'clock. Since then, 2 big red periods, now hoping to get some reversal on that, but we've got a long way to go if we want to see any profit. This is looking like it could be a loser as well. And as we roll into 5:30, our Euro Australian dollar trade over here, it's been an hour since the update. We've actually had 4 green candles since then. It looked like it was going to be pretty bleak. That low down there, we were getting deep into losses, but the return has come. Currently in profit, and we see the accelerator oscillator does flip zero. That means 15 minutes time. We could be closing down this trade, hopefully with a bit of profit. Maybe it can push even higher. Great British Pound Canadian dollar, it is bad news though. You can see on the chart since the last day, every single candle has continued to run green, and that trade alone now is $260 down. It's definitely making a case for a stop loss in there somewhere. Alright, it does seem like we are going to be able to take some profits from closing this Euro Australian dollar trade out. There it goes, that was $33.80. Pretty near perfect. Would have been good to get in at the end of this candle maybe. 39.57 was the RSI reading when we got in. The next one down at 36.94. That would have been even more profits. Happy we could snap some back though, get a winning trade going again. Puts us about $45 down, on top of the Great British Pound Canadian dollar trade, which is still going at about $280 down. Not so good. Hasn't been too much impact throughout the afternoon from any of the speeches either. Even Jerome Powell at 5:30. Not got anything interesting to say. And we're not going to take any more entries. We are just going to wait until the end of our Great British Pound Canadian dollar trade, whenever that may be. How long have we been in it? Almost 4 hours now. Our longest winning trade when we were on the relatively simple strategy was 2.5 hours. This one has absolutely blown the performance of those trades out of the water. Only really had that one consolidation period that brought the accelerator down, and it looked like we could get the crossover, which now it does seem like it would have been pretty nice for our results. But it's pushed again, and now who knows when it'll cross. 6:15 is about to hit us, and we are going to be able to close the Great British Pound Canadian dollar trade at last. And the previous 2 candles, they've done us a favour as well. Really did put some red in. At the peak it was around about $280 down for that trade, but it finishes $186.04 down. Certainly not a good trade. But at least we did have some winning trades today. It wasn't all bad, it was just the New Zealand dollar and the Great British Pound both decided to trend and experience that we're not really used to seeing, but it did happen. And at the very least, I do feel quite vindicated about the relatively simple strategy, because you can see exactly how the trend is meant to work. This Pound Canadian did come off a bit more than you'd want it to right at the end, but it was such a powerful run up. There was still a lot of profits to be had before the accelerator oscillator turned. That on top of the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, which just gave a prime example. Look how close to the top this got you out. There was only about another 3 or 4 pips in it. So if you were wanting to see in those videos how the relatively simple strategy was meant to work, now you've seen it. We will be back again for more reverse relatively simple strategy. It's 10 to 11, and we're back on the charts for part 2. Looks like there would have been some buy trades recently. New Zealand dollar, US dollar on the left, that would be quite nice. You get a move from there, or so far you begin to move from there. Pound CAD in the middle, looks like that had a buy trade after this candle went into oversold territory. At the moment that would be going a bit against you, couple pips, a bit more if you include the spread. And on the right, the Euro Australian dollar, it looks like it was last period as well. It looks like you got one here though, and maybe you even got in on this one further back. No moves for us right now. We'll have to wait for the pound Canadian, the Euro Aussie to go back into the middle and then either return to oversold or push into overbought. The New Zealand dollar, US dollar, that's already in the channel. So we've just got to wait for it to either push into overbought territory and get above the moving average, or come back down into oversold territory. Hopefully it's a bit more of a rangy day than yesterday. Or if there is a trend, let's have some strong retracements in price. Get us out early. Let's check the economic calendar, see what events we got. Not too much from Asia. 1:50 AM in Japan. Current account and adjusted current account did miss their forecast and down on previous. 2:01 at the British Retail Consortium. We get retail sales then year on year, negative 0.2 actual against negative 2.1 forecast. So better than the forecast, still down a bit on the actual though. And the National Australian Bank Business Confidence, the survey of business confidence in Australia. The actual is in at 21. That is quite a lot above the forecast of 4. And even the previous was 13. So that's good for them. Businesses' confidence is improving. 9 AM we had German trade balance. 13.2 billion actual against 15.4% forecast. And the current account 19.6 billion actual against 22 billion forecast. So both those are missing their mark, but only by a small amount. Shouldn't see any impact and shouldn't be any cause for concern. Had the French trade balance as well, also on the Eurozone. This one's a negative as forecast. Slightly worse than expected though, at negative 6.777 billion. The forecast was negative 6.436. And that's what we've had so far. Do have a few numbers throughout the day. The Centre for European Economic Research. We get the German Economic Sentiment Indicator reading, as well as their economic situation reading. And on the Eurozone as a whole, we also get the Economic Sentiment Indicator, seen as a good indicator towards the strength of the economy. 2 o'clock CPI month on month from Mexico. Yeah, they've been doing okay. It's a bit higher than expected. 0.49 is the forecast, 0.62 is the previous. You wouldn't want that every month, obviously, because things get out of control quickly, but it's not as rampant as American countries further south. Mexico wouldn't mind getting a bit below that forecast, though. Various speeches throughout the afternoon. Not sure if any of these are going to have an impact. The ones yesterday didn't. We do have Christine Lagarde at 3 o'clock. Jerome Powell, chair of the Fed, he's on at 4 o'clock. A few other board members peppered in there. But in the middle of that, 3:30, Producers Price Index month on month. That'd be an interesting one to see. Are producers paying more? They're certainly forecast to be at 0.7%. You'd think they would want to start bringing down that number. 0.5% was the previous. We'll definitely be watching for that one. Other than that, not a lot. You got the short-term energy outlook report at 7 o'clock. And at the same time, the agricultural demand report. Those two won't really have an impact. And just to end the day, you got the 10-year note auction. I do think most of my listeners are competitive bidders, putting in for more than $5 million worth of bonds. See you there. For now, let's get back on the charts as we are about to close off the period in 30 seconds. Doesn't look as though any signals are going to come. We're looking at the Great British Pound Canadian dollar chart in the middle. And the last two periods, price has skyrocketed and it's swung the RSI all the way into the overbought territory. Currently around about 64.65 is the reading. 10 seconds. Let's measure out our risk. We're going to be getting into this one. Looking at about 39 pips there to the stop loss. So you can see how our risk is calculated on screen now. And we're going to be entering a sell trade on the pound Canadian. And it's worth noting as well, if you got in that buy trade here, that's where you would have closed out up there. That would have been a very nice trade for you. 35 pips in that one, thereabouts. Let's set our take profit here. A little bit low on the bottom, but that is fine. Hopefully it's not deja vu on the pound Canadian, where it just keeps on running. And there we go, on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. You got in right at the bottom with a buy trade there. The RSI did go to 39.74, and then you would have closed out when the accelerator oscillator flipped above zero. It closed that candle there. You'd have made a nice 9 or 10 pips from that one. 12:30, so about an hour since we got into this trade on the pound CAD. It did surge for a period, and it looked like that trend was going to push, but it's come back down since, and we are hovering just around about profit. Hopefully we can push a bit more. No other signals on the other charts. If you were in on that Euro Australian dollar chart initially, it wouldn't have actually turned out too bad for you. It would have been a buy trade either here or here, and then you would have been closing out at the end of this period. So a little bit of money for you, possibly taken out by the spread, but certainly wouldn't have finished as bad as it looked and it was coming down here. If you'd gone in on this one, that would have been a loss because that's the same exit position. So there would have been 6 or 7 pips loss. But any of the other times that it came through, small win. 1:15, and we do get to close our trade down. The accelerator oscillator cross zero, closed there. So we take a win. Not a big win, but $12.30. Certainly quite nice in the end. It looked like it was going to go poorly right at the beginning. You saw this push here. Makes you nervous, but it returned almost immediately, ranged off for a bit, and then eventually we do get to take profit. Still waiting for any other signals. Has been pretty quiet compared to what we usually expect. We got 6 trades out of yesterday. So far, only 1 on the 2.5 hours we've been here. Meanwhile, on the economic calendar, we did have those numbers from the Center of Economic Research. In Germany, economic sentiment indicator came in at 31.7 against a forecast of 24.4. Bit of a beat there, but they missed on the economic situation, which was an actual 12.5 against 16.5. Then for the Eurozone as a whole, economic sentiment indicator 25.9 actual against 26.1 forecast. So a little bit under than the forecast, but not really by much. And the previous was 21, so it's a good improvement on that. Not the worst numbers, but they will want to see them keep growing. Well, you'd imagine that's what they want. Coming up to 2:15 now. Does look as though a signal might just about come on the Euro Australian dollar over here on the right. RSI, you can see nearly tilting past 61. There it does. It's been a strong run, so this looks like it could be a reversal. Let's measure out that risk. We're looking at about 40 pips there. That's what we're going to call it. And is it going to land? It is so close. It does stick it. So we are going to sell off the market over here with 0.48 lots, and then we can set that take profit right down at the bottom there. Worked out pretty well. And maybe it is that the Euro Australian dollar does continue on a run. Obviously not beyond the realm of possibility, but at the same time, most of these candles from the last 10-15 periods, they've been green, and as it gets up towards this level, could be seen as a resistance zone which it bounces off of. We've certainly seen worse trades, and we're happy to get into one after such a slow morning with entries. We do have the accelerator oscillator comfortably above the 0 level. Whatever happens, it is going to take a while to come back from those highs, but maybe it could get down all the way to that support level and get us some profit. Almost up on 2:45 now. Our position on the Euro Australian dollar, it's in a touch of profit. Mostly just been hovering around the entry price though. But now we can look towards the pound Canadian dollar. RSI beneath 40, price beneath the average. We're going to measure out our risk. It is going to be a buy trade. We'll call that 39 pips. And there we go. We get the signal, and so you can see our risk calculated on screen as we're going to buy that market in the hopes of a reversal. Spreads suck on the pound CAD, by the way. Let's punch in that take profit. It should appear towards the top. There it is, a little bit above it. But that's fine. What isn't fine is seeing price come down. We want it to bounce from this support level, do a U-turn or consolidate and do a U-turn, get that accelerator oscillator close above 0 and in some profit for us. 2 active trades now. Pound CAD last period taking a heavy drop once again. Not what we want to see moving against our trade, and so is the Euro Australian dollar as well. We're about $70 down between the two at the moment. Let's keep waiting for that reversal. Interesting candle here. The Great British Pound Canadian dollar, that took a return big time, and it's almost near our entry price now, only a few dollars down. Meanwhile, the Euro Aussie dollar, that one moved against us. Did go up to quite a high and looked like it was going to be trouble. At the moment though, it's come back down, so we're only about $35 down on the 2 trades. And check over on the left, the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. That's about to give us the buy signal. We can measure out the risk. Shame it's taken this retracement, makes us less confident in it. Although it's dropping now, we still calculate the risk. Okay, so here we go. Let's buy in at 0.68. And that's our take profit up there. Probably went a little bit higher than we should there, maybe by 2 pips. 19 might have been better. But either way, now we're waiting for the accelerator oscillator to hopefully flip across 0. I mean, we've seen it come back from this low. That was potentially the bottom there. Wouldn't mind seeing it bounce now. And the PPI numbers from just a couple minutes ago, actual 0.6%, forecast was 0.7. Compared to the forecast, you imagine they'll be happy, even though 0.6 is still a bit high. It's better than seeing them get slapped with a 1.2, 1.4, something really up there. The Mexican CPI earlier, that came in at 2 o'clock. It was 0.84 actual against 0.49 forecast. So I don't think they'll be so pleased with that. Quite a bit of a miss there. Not what you want on inflation at the moment. That's it for the numbers. We'll just see if any of these speeches make any impact at all. Fed Chair Powell at 4 o'clock could be the one, but we didn't see much movement yesterday from him. Let's watch the trades. Not too bad at the moment. As it turns 4 o'clock, we do see the accelerator oscillator on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. That flips above zero. Could be closing out this trade for some good profits. Currently up $53. Not doing quite as well on the other charts, particularly the Euro Aussie dollar getting away from us a little last period. But at least we do have something optimistic looking in this New Zealand dollar, US dollar. Let's find out in 14 minutes if that profit holds up. And those profits do not hold up at all. In fact, price took such a battering over the last 15 minutes, just in that last period, that it pushed the accelerator oscillator back below zero, and so it finished a negative value. We see it now flip again to a positive value, so again we might be closing it in 15 minutes, but who knows, and whether it's going to be for a profit or not. I mean, right now it wouldn't be. We'd be losing a few dollars at least. Pretty disappointing. When we saw it up at this high, that was about $70 to the good, and it was only in the last 5 or 6 minutes of the candle that it took this huge drop off. Struggling for profits now, and it's the same on these other two charts as well. The accelerator oscillator on the pound CAD in the middle, it's close to tipping over, but we're still in a loss. If we have to close it down, if it drifts across when we're in this range, we're losing about $45. And then the only one we do want to come down is the Euro Australian dollar. That one's ranging more at the top, but for now we do hold on to the trades. With just under a minute to go before the close of the candle, it is going to come right down to the wire on both the New Zealand dollar, US dollar and the pound Canadian dollar to see if we take profit. Both of them right now looking okay. We weren't expecting to get the pound Canadian dollar closed quite so soon, but you can see it's had a big run in our favour this period. Been pretty lucky the last 15 minutes. It's reversed the fortunes of the previous candle, and here we are 5 seconds to go. It does look as though it's going to be some minor profits. Let's just wait for it. There it is, and we get those shut off. The New Zealand dollar, US dollar, that came in at $6.80 in the end, and the pound Canadian $16.98. Some small profits there. Bit disappointed with the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, because that was right up at that high, as I said. Could have been looking more at around $60, $70, but at least we didn't take a loss. And I am happy with the pound Canadian dollar. That one really looked like it was going to get away. Then that last candle did us a favour there, and we are able to take profit from it. So for the day, we're $36.08 up on our closed trades, but currently this Euro Australian dollar trade is $75 down near enough. So we need that one to come back to the good, head red, so we don't have all of our gains obliterated just by a single trade. Here's hoping. Okay, we're looking at getting back into a buy trade on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. The RSI has crashed below 40, currently around 36, 37. That's still our highest high there. That is going to be 24 pips, we'll call it. So you can see our risk calculated on screen now. We are getting back in with a buy trade and 0.59 lots. And we're happy we got the trade because we have got to throw caution to the wind here as our Euro Australian dollar gets absolutely battered. $195 loss over there on the right. So hopefully this New Zealand dollar, US dollar can get back some of the damage we're going to feel from that. We got out of our last trade, the previous candle before this big drop. These are the kind of signals that we don't mind getting as long as we do see a reversal and not a sustained trend. It is just after 5:30. And we are pretty disappointed with these trades. We're just over $400 down between them. If we were trading these on the relatively simple strategy, not the reverse, well, we might actually be able to get a positive day. But if you ever wonder, you ever have a strategy that's so bad that you think, well, can I just do the opposite of what I did there and therefore make money? Because doing the opposite should lead you to the gains where the previous strategy led you to the losses. Definitely not the case with the relatively simple strategy. And these trades are going to be open a good while. There's no signs of them slowing down. The accelerator oscillator moving to new lows or highs respectively, depending on which trade we're looking at. So I think we're going to be in for the long haul, and I think these are going to get worse before they get better. We will wait it out. 7 o'clock, and we do get to manually close down the New Zealand dollar US dollar trade as the accelerator oscillator finally closed above zero. It is a loss of $107.97. Awful trade, but a really good example again of what you could expect if you were trading this as the relatively simple strategy, not the reverse one. Picture this as a sell trade and picture yourself getting $100 out of that. And we'll continue to wait for the euro Australian dollar, the accelerator oscillator still above zero there, $322 down. That one still to be closed. And now at 7:45, we do get to shut down at long last the euro Australian dollar trade. There it goes. Real bad one. Baddest one of the 2 days. Obviously, not using a stop loss is compounding the losses. But even if we were using a stop loss, it wouldn't really be a lot better. It certainly wouldn't be consistent profitability. If we were mirroring the 2% reward with a 2% risk, both these would have gone for $140. We would have saved $107 thereabouts, but it's still been $243 down for the day. We are going to trade one more session of this strategy. Part 3, here we go, 25 to 11. And you had some pretty mixed trades so far. That would have been a buy trade on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, right at the bottom of this candle. And then you would have closed out after the first period. You wouldn't have got this second one because the accelerator oscillator above zero still. Cheeky 7 pips. Great British pound Canadian dollar. Well, you either would have been in a buy trade here or here. So neither one of those are looking particularly good for your prospects at the moment. And the euro Australian dollar on the right. Do you know, you wouldn't have got in here because that was actually filtered out by the moving average. There we go. There we go. We do see a trade filtered out by the moving average. And then in fact, it also would have filtered you out on this one as well. The RSI reading 38.24 for that period. So you would have been looking for a buy trade there and you wouldn't have got it because of the moving average. So if you are trading the strategy correctly, you won't be on anything for the euro Aussie dollar. You'd just be hoping that the pound Canadian doesn't trend too much. The RSI on both those charts really low though, 20.93 on the pound Canadian, 25.59 the euro Aussie, getting deep into oversold territory. For now, the one for us to watch is the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. RSI up at 57, could get above 60. But again, surprisingly, the moving average could filter you out. Well, watch what happens there. Let's see our economic calendar. What have we had? A South Korean unemployment rate, 3.2% actual against 2.9% forecast. Bit of a miss for them there. They were hoping it was going to improve on the previous 3%, but it has taken a dip to 3.2. CPI month on month from China, 0.7% actual, was forecast at negative 0.3. So they thought deflationary. They had a flat previous, but they couldn't control it this month. So that is exceeding the forecast by 1% on the CPI. That was Asia. In Europe this morning, Germany 9 a.m. CPI month on month as well. 0.5% actual, 0.5% forecast, 0.5% previous. That started picking up for Germany. They were able to hold it flat for a good while, but now it's coming a little bit for them as well. At the same time, we had CPI month on month from Norway, and they were deflationary, a negative 0.3% actual against 0.2% forecast. They had 1% previous. So last month the reading was 1%. That was the reading in October, so it would be for September's figures. I mean, they raised interest rates about that time, and immediately they're getting a deflationary environment. Don't usually expect to see it that quick. But that does mean they're year on year currently at 3.5%. Not really much for us in the morning. We do have industrial production month on month from Italy in the Eurozone. That's in 20 minutes time at 11 o'clock. And then more inflation data this afternoon. We got Brazil 2 o'clock. Their forecast at 0.77%. They missed on their PPI. Wouldn't be surprised if they miss on the CPI as well. And then the biggest CPI of all, the United States dollar month on month. That's forecast at 0.5%, coming through at 3:30 along with the core CPI and the weekly initial jobless claims. Definitely expect volatility on the charts then. People will be watching that number closely. We had the PPI, the Producers Price Index, yesterday coming slightly under than forecast at 0.6 against 0.7. But this one people do pay a little bit more attention to. No one feels bad when the producers are paying more, but when it gets to the consumers, oh, you're going to hear it. And that's pretty much it. It is Wednesday, so you get the oil stocks change at 5:30. And then late into the evening, federal budget balance on the US dollar at 9 o'clock. And right at the very end, 11:45, the food price index month on month from New Zealand. So 3:30 will be our focus for the economic calendar. Back on the charts though, wow, you're certainly glad to get filthed out for this Euro Australian dollar trade. Look at the plunge it's taking. Doesn't look like we're going to get a signal this period, but I'm sure you'll get a few throughout the day. We've had 11 so far from the last 2 days, so you would expect another 5.5 trades today. All the way on to 12:30 now. Still no sign of a signal. Been going almost 2 hours now. Euro Australian dollar playing it right down the middle. Pound Canadian dollar, it's really leveled off in a range. The New Zealand dollar, US dollar also playing it down the middle as well. RSI at 49.59, so really not much movement at all. On the economic calendar, there was the industrial production from Italy month on month. 0.1% actual against 0.0% forecast and a negative 0.3 previous. Things are looking up, even if it's only at 0.1%. Coming into 1 o'clock now, and we are going to get our first signal of the day by the look of it. The New Zealand dollar, US dollar over here on the left, RSI at 38.19, highest high of the last 14 periods for calculating our take profit. 21 pips is what we'll call it. So you can see our risk calculated on screen now as it turns over 1 o'clock and we enter into a buy trade. And our take profit goes in, but you can see it there at the top. We are in the trade and we do see the accelerator oscillator crossover 0, which means we'll have to wait for the reverse crossover now. Get above the 0 line, close off, and hopefully make us some money. This has been ranging for some time. Don't want to have seen this just been a consolidation and we're going into the drop off now. That would not be good. But every trade's got a chance, so let's see how it goes. 15 minutes in, after just one period, it's already looking like a pretty grim situation for us. The downward trend has continued. RSI now down at 31, and our trade is about $65, $70 down. We can't handle too many more of those. And if we get another $200 losing trade or more, then we are done for. We're already done for, but that would be a nail in the coffin. 2:15, and our trade has just been ranging around $53 down at the moment. Last hour, not a lot of movement at all. We do need it to come to the upside, or else that accelerator oscillator will eventually drift across 0, and it will be a loss for around about this amount. No other signals on the other charts. We have come close on the Euro Australian dollar. You can see the RSI there finished at 40.56. That would have been a buy trade at the end of that candle. Be slightly to your favour at the moment. But keep an eye on what's going to happen with this New Zealand dollar US dollar trade. Here we go for another trade entry. The Euro Australian dollar going to give us a buy trade. The RSI in the 37s. Let's measure out that risk. There's our highest high, looking at about 29 pips. And so now we can get into a buy trade. You can see the risk, 0.63 lots. There we go. We are in our trade. And we also see on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, the accelerator oscillator crosses 0. If it closes like that, we'll be exiting the trade. Could really do with a green candle, just bump us up. Don't make it too much of a loss. And when we look at the accelerator oscillator on the Euro Australian dollar, it is beneath the 0 line, but it's not very far across it. Couple small green candles, we could definitely see that push across. Like to take some small profits there. And here does come the trade close for the New Zealand dollar US dollar pair on the left as we roll over 3 o'clock. Let's shut it down. The accelerator oscillator crosses above 0. It was a loss, but it certainly didn't get away from us. If you think this was the range, price was drifting back up. Made sense for the accelerator oscillator to cross 0. We were just hoping that we'd either get more of a bump or that when we started we hadn't got that big red candle. That was the difference maker right there. So we do finish that one with a loss of $30.08, but it could have been worse. And we've still got our Euro Australian dollar trade open, which is about $15 profitable. So maybe we can get some back from that. The accelerator oscillator, that's above 0. Only just about, but there is a chance that we'll be closing it off this period. Just a moment ago on this Euro Australian dollar chart, we were at $35 in profit up at that high there, but as the candle closes, when it rains it pours, it does look like it's going to be a loss. No, I think we just snagged out 46 cents there, and we did. It is a winning trade. That is fantastic. But wow, we were close to being in profit for the day. We've only had the $30 losing trade. 314, it was up there at that high, and then the last minute, sell off, sell off, sell off, and we end up barely scraping through. Thought that was going to be a good one when I looked at it a minute to go, but unfortunately not getting back the losses we had from the New Zealand dollar US dollar pair. We'll wait for another entry signal. All three of these looking like they could give buy signals if they dip into the oversold territory. They're all hovering around 42, 43 on the RSI. Here's the inflation numbers, and you can see immediately the chart's going wild. Good thing we weren't selling that buy trade on the New Zealand dollar US dollar. It is dropping fast, and that is a miss 0.9%. Ouch. They're expecting 0.5% on the forecast. They were also expecting 0.5 on the core CPI, which is coming at 0.6, but 0.9, that is a really poor figure. If you had that every single month, you'd be looking at 10.8%. Rough, very rough results. A lot worse than expected, and more than twice as much as the previous 0.4. Does seem like buy signals could come through at 3:45 on both these left-hand side charts. We are going to have two signals coming in for us. Let's measure out the risk on the New Zealand dollar US dollar chart. It's about 25 pips. We might see some movement on that in between. Wouldn't be surprised, but we do have to stick it out somewhere. So 25 pips will be the number. Same on the pound Canadian, we'll be getting a buy signal, and that one will go for 30 pips on. This is absolutely trying to catch a falling knife on both these charts. And we do see the signal coming through on the Euro Aussie dollar as well. Let's focus up on these two first. So we've got 0.54 lots. You can see all of these risks are going to be on screen, of course. So we're going to buy there, and then we're going to buy on the pound CAD as well, 0.56 this time. And then we've got the RSI 38.94 and the Euro Aussie dollar. That's going to be 29 pips for the risk. And so it'll be at 0.63 on the volume. A little slow on this one, almost a minute past since, but better late than never. Set the take profits for all of these. I don't think any of them are going to do well at all, to be honest. It'll either be the absolute savior of the strategy, or much more likely it will be the death of the strategy. It doesn't seem so probable. We've got to watch the accelerator oscillator as well on each of these, because it is above zero on them at the moment. So if we do see green on any of these trades, we will likely be closing after just one period. Meanwhile, just because of the inflation numbers, let's not forget that we did get initial jobless claims as well at 3:30. That came in at 267,000 against the forecast of 275,000. And also, let's not forget our CPI month-on-month from Brazil. That came in at 1.25% against the forecast of 0.77, even more than the US inflation of 0.9. Inflation is something that South American countries have typically struggled with, and Brazil is no exception right now. But it is all about these three trades, all of them losers at the moment, $70 down between them. But you never know, we're in it to win it. We want nothing but green here. Let's make it happen. 5 seconds to go until 4 o'clock, and it does look as though we are going to be closing off the two trades on the left-hand side there. Let's get those shut down. The accelerator oscillator closing above for both of those. Let's pull that up on the trade history. There you go. But the accelerator oscillator was flipped on the Euro Australian dollar, and I think that's pretty bad. I think likely that these trends will continue. I mean, on those two trades, very close to a wash. It was $71.70 loss on the pound CAD and $63.18 on the New Zealand dollar US dollar. Once you factor in the spreads, they were pretty similar, to be fair. Although it does put us a bit more down at $38. This is what we want to see on the Euro Aussie though. We need the return, and we need it in a big way. Really would like to take some profit from today, but we'll wait and see it out. We are measuring out our risk on the New Zealand dollar US dollar chart. 41 pips will be the number, and we are going to get a sell trade here as it moves into overbought territory above the moving average. Let's sell off the market here, and that's our take profit down there. Let's hope we can catch the reversal. We did last time on this chart. It is up at a resistance level as well. Zoom out so you can see that better. Definitely a resistance zone. And as it's the last session, we are going to throw everything at it and get back in here with a pound Canadian dollar buy trade. The RSI 35, and so we're going for 36 pips to the stop loss, and we can get in here 0.46 lots. Last time we were in a buy trade, it didn't go so well for us, but now here we are again with all the potential in the world. And we are about to close down one of our trades, the New Zealand dollar US dollar, and it's good profits. It is good profits, $90.09. So if we don't include these two active trades that are going, we are 51.95 up for the day. And the New Zealand dollar US dollar has turned into a bit of a shining example of what the reverse relatively simple strategy can do. Back-to-back wins. We got $63 out of that move, and then 90 on the return. And we did have a buy signal to get right back in there at 38.34. That was the RSI's reading. You can see that there. But we are not going to take it because we are just going to wait out these last two trades of the pound CAD and the Euro Aussie, and that'll be the end of our session. Now we're going to get to close another one, the Euro Australian dollar. It rolls over, the accelerator oscillator closes, and we are able to just about keep the loss under $200. 195.62 in the end. Really got caught on the bad end of that trade. If you're trading the relatively simple strategy, pretty prime as it's meant to work. You get in right before the big move. As the momentum builds, it pushes you in, and then price ranges off until eventually the accelerator oscillator slips across that zero line and you shut it down. Bit of a loss for us, $143.67 down now for the day, with one trade left, the pound CAD, and it is $60 down, but it has had a very strong green candle just before. With the accelerator oscillator still below zero, hopefully we get two more periods like that push it right towards our take profit, and we could maybe get one more winning trade out of it. And we got pretty close here. We did have one decent sized green candle and another small one, but we are still going to close it off for a loss. Pretty minimal loss though, not too worried about something like that. $10.72. Could have gone a lot worse. And this is a prime example, honestly, of where the stop loss would have knocked you out. If you had a stop loss, I mean, where are you putting it if you let it run past there? And that's where too much luck comes into this strategy. With the Euro Australian dollar, it ranged rather than bouncing, so we took a big hit on that one. But with the pound Canadian, it bounced, and so we didn't take much of a hit. If we took out the spreads, we'd be basically in profit. But there we go. Not a good day's trading. And I think between the relatively simple and the reverse of it, a lot of it comes down to whether you get a ranging day or a trendy day. When we wanted the trendy days on the relatively simple strategy, we got the rangy days. And then when we wanted the range-based days, we got more of the trending days. It's just the way it goes, but you can see how either way you play it, it can end up going against you depending on the overall market. The New Zealand dollar, US dollar, that's a prime example of what you can get in a ranging, bouncy market today. Couple really good trades, and it actually has bounced a bit again, so you'd be in profit if you took that buy trade back there. Maybe now the spread would just take you into loss, but it'd be pretty close. But on these other two, we've had trending days, and they've done quite a bit of damage to us. So we finished the day at $154.39 down. The best of the 3 days, to be fair. So let's round it all off over in the journal. So when all is said and done, how does it look from the perspective of the journal? Not very good. I think we already know that. As we scroll down, if all you were doing was looking at the color, whether it's green or red, there is plenty of green out there. 18 trades we took across the 3 days, 9 gains, 9 losses, so right down the middle. But we know that the average loss was quite a bit more than the average gain. Particularly almost $500 those losses came on the Euro Australian dollar from yesterday and today. Yesterday, that big one there, $278. That was a giant loss, and then today another one for $195. Yesterday was a sell for that loss, today was a buy for it. Really poor trades. And we didn't get a green day out of it. Red on all 3 days, just as we were with the relatively simple strategy. But actually, we didn't take as many losses on this one as we did with that one. Here's a quick side-by-side comparison, and you can see trading the strategy normally costs us $1,143. Doing the exact opposite strategy only costs us $732. So quite a bit of an improvement in that sense. Cut the losses by 30-40%. And on the original strategy, 17 trades, only 2 of them produce wins. At least in the reverse, you do get to say you won 9 trades, regardless of how mediocre the gains are. All that it means is that both strategies are completely unworkable. And it is a good example because I'm sure many of you have thought that you could switch a bad strategy on its head, take the opposite signals and make money. Well, there's a fair chance you'll just end up in the market that you don't want to end up in, trading the wrong asset. Not much more to say on this strategy. That's $732. That was about 10% of our account. Really close to that. We started at $7,325, now down to $6,592. 10% in 3 days, and that was with trying to keep our risk managed, playing on the 15-minute chart. Still ended pretty badly, as an understatement. And let's wrap up the strategy once and for all with our final thoughts. Final thoughts, we had pretty high hopes for this strategy, but that was only because of the absolute failure that we witnessed in the relatively simple strategy. When we traded that strategy, it bled losses for 3 days straight, and without any evidence that you'd get any really good signals from it. So because of how badly it went, we made an assumption that reversing those signals would therefore make the strategy profitable. And okay, maybe we didn't have high hopes, but we certainly didn't have hopes as low as the results of the strategy demonstrated, because amazingly, it also turned out to be a complete abject failure. It wasn't that there were small losses taking opposite signals to one another, they were heavy losses on both sides. We've talked about the possibility of a stop loss on this strategy, and whilst it would absolutely reduce some of those big trending losses, I really don't think there's a good enough stop loss position to ever get consistent profitability. There weren't many entries that went immediately in our direction. Plenty of them would have knocked out a tight stop loss, even though we ended up surprisingly taking small profits on a few of them. So the profits profits you saved from not being as much of a victim on the hard trends would likely just be given away again in trades that did end up reversing back to your favor. We also never saw our take profit trigger on this strategy over the last few days, but we did see those levels trigger multiple times as a stop loss when we traded the relatively simple strategy. I'm not really sure what to do with that information. So where can we go from here with the relatively simple strategy? Well, I fear that that is it for the strategy. Signals that come from the relative strength index at the levels of 60 and 40, from our testing at least, do not appear reliable regardless of whether you take a buy signal or a sell signal from those readings. You would need a very nifty money management system in place to make it all work. So that does mean that I personally could not in good conscience recommend the use of those levels for trading, but maybe you've got some major tweaks in your system that makes it work. Here's hoping. We might find ourselves back on the charts with the relative strength index again, but it certainly won't be in the capacity we've used it for in the relatively simple strategy or any variation of that strategy. So that is it. Don't trade this at home, but if you do want more information on either the indicators or the strategy, you can find some of that in the description. And as always, these strategies are traded with demo money only, throwing indicators at the wall, seeing what sticks. If you are enticed by the results of this strategy to get involved and trade it live with real money, good luck to you. You know what awaits. Just try not to lose too much. Thank you for watching. This is Project Trade. I am Darth Trader, and there will be more.